Hi, my name is Ashley, and this is my handmade home in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I am a photographer full-time. I do brand photography, product photography, and some lifestyle photography. But I've always just kind of documented my life and documented my family and just the things around me. And then I just started getting hired for small projects. And over time, it just kind of turned into its own business and its own life. So my style of photography, I just love shadows. Working in the commercial world or doing commercial photography or lifestyle photography, you blow out all the shadows. You make this veneer of life that doesn't really exist. And so my own personal work began with a series that was mostly shadow, just dark. Most of the larger bodies of work that I've made are about big questions, usually about the world around me as I'm experiencing it. I made a series called Mark Yourself Safe because I was interested in fear around Black men specifically, like what alarms us to tell us that, you know, we're either safe or unsafe. I was also kind of playing on this idea of like this Facebook thing of telling your, mark yourself safe from like different natural disasters and stuff that are going on around the world. But when it comes to Black men, especially as we were seeing so many just police-related deaths, one seen and unseen, I was very curious about what invokes that fear. I had a really interesting dream where a bunch of Black boys were like ripping off their clothes and running away from a group home and like painting these Rorschach shapes on their backs. It's work that investigates the viewer. On Instagram, we had larger conversation about that, and people were honest about saying that like, there's something deeply ingrained. Hey, mommy. This particular piece, it's a photo by me, but it's an image of these really powerful works called Papa Said Girls Don't Play with Guns by Lakia Shepherd. She's a local artist who makes these phenomenal masks. She makes really powerful work. This particular piece is by an artist named Kennedy Carter. She was the youngest person to shoot a British Vogue cover, which was Beyonce's. But she had a whole series of boys and men with horses, and she just does a really beautiful job of showcasing the dignity and beauty of Black men and Black folks. And when I see like a really great portrait, or when I talk to an artist about their practice, I'm like, I want a part of that around me, and I want it big. Most of the art in my house is really big. This is by an artist named Miriam Tribe. She was really gracious enough to allow me to commission her. I asked her for like a community of people, not any specific type of person, but I asked her for a community of people that were kind of emotive and like, I don't know, leaning into each other. And literally the first sketch she did, I was like, that's it, that's the one. So I projected it onto my wall and then painted over it, and she did a really great job of calling in what I was looking for, which is just people in community with one another. This room was advertised as a study, and I've never had a dining room before, never bought a dining room table before or chairs, and so I was like, well, this has to be my first ever dining room. So one of my favorite things about this apartment is that these built-ins basically lend themselves to be displays. And so throughout the season sometimes, or especially throughout the holidays, this built-in turns into whatever my world is like in that day. So I choose things that go in here that are central to things that are meaningful for me, objects that I've found on my travels, and of course you can see in here there's like some kind of a vibe. There's the same kind of color scheme, which is like taupe and gold and black and whatever. This is called like the Mexican Circle of Friends. It's really cool. I forgot what it symbolizes, but I'm gonna guess that it symbolizes something like community. But I went to the Harry Potter store and got Hermione's wand. I love fantasy and imagination and adventure, and it's like one of the first places, I guess, when I was younger that had all of those things. So Harry Potter store, New York City, was really cool. I don't like for things to not be seen or not be used, you know? I don't like to just have things for the sake of having things. I like them to live their life. My mom was kind of that way. She was like a lover of inanimate objects, like she would personify them. So I got these images when I was on Instagram, and I saw someone post a whole folder full of images of Black folks, like older images. And usually when I'm in thrift stores or vintage stores, I never ever see like Black folks. So I asked my cousin in Atlanta to like go buy them for me and bring them back, and had them all framed. Even though I don't know these people, and these people may not even be connected, I'm like, I hope somewhere someone knows that they have like a family and a home somewhere, and they're like dignified and happy. I like the idea of having new life to these images, you know, in my own home. All of the walls that were here were like yellow and some interesting burnt orange or something. But I left this room because I wanted it to feel cozy. I liked how warm it made the room feel. White is definitely, you know, part of the palette and part of what's in here, but a bed is a really intimate place, both mentally and physically. And so for my mind, I'm like, what is the coziest that I can feel in this room? And I wanted to keep that warm color for that reason. In my bedroom, I have two very large images of my nieces, and it wasn't supposed to be for art. It was actually just me taking photos of them. My sister came over and was like doing their hair, and I was like, y'all come over here for a second. I just want to take a picture while like they're in the midst of getting their hair done. Growing up, your identity and like your sense of self-worth is developed based on the world that's happening around you, and it's specifically difficult for Black girls because you can see so much of what you don't have through the eyes of the world, which isn't always really made or fashioned for you. And what I have in my room are these really magnificent photos of my girls with their hair out the way that it grows. And what I wish I'd even had for my own self at that age was like for someone to look at me and regard my natural beauty the way it is and be like, damn, that's really beautiful. And that's what I want my nieces to see. They're massive. When I displayed these images in shows, it was like my very first solo show, it was so cool to watch them walk up to their own images and like see themselves so big, because they really wanted people to know like, this is me, this is me. It's just a monument to what I see in them and I hope they see in themselves. This piece was done by my best friend, Corey Beck. I really love the style that she has. It's very abstract. Like, for example, up here, she calls this like a sunflower and you can see it, but it's like intense, and like snakes and dragons and reptiles are central to her work. It's really bizarre, but in like the best way. This is my mom. When my grandma passed away, there were big totes full of photos and framed images and photo albums and everything left. And a lot of my work covers like generational passing of ideas. And some of those ideas are rooted in sometimes self-hatred, but not necessarily given to us by each other, but the circumstance of just racial inequality. And to know her as an adult is very different than who she was when she was young. And she still has a kind of youthful exuberance to her, but this is a time before some of her most difficult times, which informed my most difficult times. And so there's like ideas and strength and also weakness and beauty and all those things that lived inside of her at this time that also live inside of me, you know, and my nieces. I don't keep very many family photos, but I like to remember who people are, even when the relationship is kind of difficult, you know? So I got into textiles and I was like, I'm gonna make something that takes forever to make. And I made all of these pom-poms by hand. Over time, my fine art practice started to ask more questions about my own identity. I started to think about hair as textile and like my own hair being a central part of my identity. And so I employ some of the same techniques that I do on my hair that I do in some of my textile pieces, like crocheting or braiding or puff balls, things like that. But this was something just big and fun and textural. It's its own little beast. My most favorite creative outlet is cooking. I love to cook. I love to cook. I love to cook. We are in the kitchen, and this is one of the 2 built-ins in this house. So this house was built in like the 1920s or so, but all of the original built-ins are here. They're also, of course, because this is a rental, painted over to death. But one of the things I wanted to do to make it my own was to change the hardware out. So I found someone who makes these really beautiful handles. I feel like it elevated the cabinet a little bit. And I also had just undergone this massive project to overhaul all of my dishes. Most of my stuff was thrifted, and so it matched, but it kind of didn't have a uniformity to it that I wanted. So there are still things in here that are secondhand and thrifted, which I'm really excited about, but there are also things in here that have a sort of artisanal quality to it that I like and admire, especially as someone who does a lot of food styling and a lot of like food photography. I wanted just things that felt a little bit more elevated. When my grandma passed away, she left her cast iron and nobody knew how to take care of it. And I was like, well, I don't either, but I'm gonna figure it out. So I restored my grandma's and kept it up and then started finding it and collecting it. I love cast iron hooks, and I love to work with artisans who create their own hooks. And Etsy is a really good place for like handmade cast iron artisans. I read cookbooks like books because food inspires me and recipes inspire me. So I keep all of my cookbooks in here. Every room in my house has a window, and so this little plant, which I happily named Monkey, has been living in here since it only had 3 leaves. So now it's happy. It's just like moving. Hopefully it takes over the whole place. I hope it does. I have a lot of siblings. I have 9 siblings. We're like fun together. So it's nice to see my siblings hanging out. Okay, so this is my favorite part of my house. It is my sunroom. It's where all of my photography, like food photography and product photography and all that stuff happens because we have sweeping windows. It's also like up in the trees, so I get to see all the tree drama. All the squirrels, like squirrels get into some stuff, and all the different types of birds. Also, the best part about this area is that it leads to my other favorite part of my house, which is my garden. I have 3 porches. The front is, you know, where I just kind of hang out, read, all that jazz. And then the back is where my garden is kind of expanded. My grandma, she would like, you know, take a potato, sit it in water, let it grow. And she would always say, I just like watching stuff grow. And I never understood that until I had my porch garden, and I was like, little flowers and beans, and you learn how your food grows. So we've got all kinds of things. We've got nasturtiums, which help with pests. We've got flowers, herbs like oregano, plenty of tomatoes because it's not summer without tomatoes. Oh, this is a cucumber. I had a mystery plant and I didn't know what the heck it was, but now I know. So I do something called companion planting, which is adding different types of plants that benefit the plant next to it. Sometimes it could be for pest control. For here, I'm using my catmint as kind of a shady space for my lettuce. My petunias, they come back every year and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's like the best. So this is the top porch, and on the lower porch is where I keep beans and kale and all types of greens and leafy good green things. So each morning I come out here and just water everything, and it's like the most meditative thing in my day. All of the preconceived things that we have about home are like in us, you know, in our heads and our minds. Sometimes we have to unravel some things to find home. And for me, that was my journey. I had to like unlearn a lot of things. I also had to like go on a journey of worthiness. Growing up, I moved a lot, you know, living with family members and not really having a space of my own. And so I had like a really difficult time with permanence, like feeling like I didn't really belong anywhere. So when I finally found this space, I didn't furnish it and I didn't put anything on the walls. It's been a real journey of belonging and knowing for myself, like, you can have things, like you can stay places, and roots can be a part of you, you know? And you can build that from the ground up. And that's what I did here. So every consideration, every light, every glass, every piece of art is really an ongoing affirmation of letting myself know that I can have something and that I belong somewhere. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to Handmade for more home tours like this.